Alright, so in part one, I just want to do a little recap here. I kind of left it off on the earthquake stuff, all had to do with 44, 43. So you can kind of read through it here. The last blood moon was on 4/4. It lasted for 4 minutes, 43 seconds, and it was 4 months, 43 days before the Chile earthquake. That was actually in Santiago, Chile, but they actually changed it to this now, Illapel. I'm assuming it must just be like a suburb of Santiago. But anyway, Nepal earthquake to the Chile earthquake was 144 days away. The word 44, kind of like 4/4, adds up to 144. April 4th, 4/4, adds up to 144. 71, which I said Moses adds up to 71. The Ten Commandments adds up to 71. Also the mirrors of 17 and 71. So the word earthquake is 44. Prophet, 44. That Chile earthquake was on 71 degrees west even. And the aftershock of the Nepal earthquake was on the same day as the Philadelphia train wreck. And they've just been foreshadowing Philadelphia a ton with earthquake. I've been mentioning it for months now. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe it's something to do with San Francisco as well. I mentioned that a long time ago, but it just seemed like Philadelphia was a lot more predominant. But anyway, that earthquake, 5/12 to the one in Chile, is 4 months, 4 days. But what's interesting about it, so Santiago, Chile, and Pope Francis, I just read an article about Pope Francis leaving Cuba to come to the United States. Just found it interesting that Pope Francis, his last spot in Cuba before he came to the United States was Santiago, Cuba. He just had the earthquake in Santiago, Chile, and then now Pope Francis leaves Santiago, Cuba to come to the United States. And let's check out the gematria of Santiago, Cuba. Santiago, Cuba is 41. In the last video, I mentioned a ton of 41 references and how it ties into Moses and whatnot. So it also adds up to 113. And we've seen this number a ton of times. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. I've talked about the Space Jam and how it all led up to 922, 923. Tons of references in Space Jam. 11/3 is there's 58 days left until the end of the year. Ton of stuff with it, so it's totally fitting. But I mean, who knows? So he leaves this trip from a town that has the same name as where the last earthquake was, and then he's going to leave Philadelphia. That's his last day in the United States is in Philadelphia. So it just makes me once again think, hey, maybe there's going to be an earthquake. And it's not a suburb, so, I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm telling you, all of the news stories, the original news stories that came out were Santiago, Chile. So, interesting that it's that far away, yet all the original news stories talked about Santiago, Chile. There's no mention of this town in the articles, so find that just strange. So they're showing you Santiago, and then the Pope was in Santiago. So just to clarify that it is actually not a suburb. This article, too, though, talks about how Pope Francis said that he knew he was going to be a priest at the age of 17 on September 21st, 1953. So exactly 62 years from yesterday. He's a 17-year-old Jorge Mario Bergoglio went to confession, blah, 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 and he knew he was going to become a priest. 17, just like Moses, just like 10 Commandments. There's even an article in the news today about this guy who's protesting the Pope, and he's been protesting the Pope for 17 years, or the pedophilia stuff on the street for more than 17 years now, more than 6,000 days, even allowing for a handful of absences. John Wojnowski has shown up on the sidewalk weekdays and weekends, whatever, blah, 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 through 3 presidents and 3 popes. So anyway, the 17 years, so that stuck out to me. 17 again, like Moses and the 10 Commandments and Lincoln, Nebraska, whatever. But also his name in gematria. His name in gematria, 60. You can't make that up. I'm sorry. If you don't understand what I'm saying, go back and watch the part 1 of this video and tons of my previous videos. 60 is ridiculous. Anyway, a few other things that made me think of Philadelphia when I thought of Moses. was if you scroll down here, and I can't believe I never noticed it before, but it talks about, well, let me find it here. It talks about the founding fathers, and then it says, immediately after July 4th, after the Declaration of Independence was officially passed, the Continental Congress asked John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin to design a seal that would clearly represent a symbol for the new United States. They chose the symbol of Moses leading the Israelites to freedom. The Founding Fathers inscribed the words of Moses on the Liberty Bell, proclaim liberty through all the land to all the inhabitants thereof. So interesting, that is on the Liberty Bell, which is in Philadelphia, where the Pope is going, also in the book of Revelation. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while now, but the word Liberty Bell adds up to 122, just like Pope Francis, just like train wreck. We've been talking about Philadelphia train wreck and how that all coincides. I mean, San Francisco, Pope Francis is named after St. Francis of Assisi. Also, San Francisco is named after St. Francis of Assisi. 122nd day is also 5/2, the day Princess Charlotte was born. So I guess I just found that interesting, especially considering it's in Philadelphia. It's got the crack, kind of like maybe cracking the ground from an earthquake. Just speculation, but there's been so much foreshadowing of it. It even goes on to say about George Washington's death, 2/3 of his eulogies refer to him as America's Moses. Blah, 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 blah. They referred him to Moses. They referred Abraham Lincoln after his death. They said they had lost their Moses. And then also, and it's interesting because I just thought of that the other day about Moses and Lincoln. They both freed the slaves, and that's why they're doing all the coding. But so they actually called him their Moses. And then Martin Luther King Jr. Was called a modern Moses or whatever, modern Moses. So check out the gematria of this. America's Moses, 50. Modern Moses, 50. Their Moses, 50. I mean, that's just strange. That's really crazy because, like, the Kansas City Chiefs, they play in the Sea of Red as well as Nebraska, the Sea of Red. And Chiefs adds up to 50. And Kansas City adds up to 122, just like Pope Francis. And remember earlier in the year when the guy was dressed up like the Pope at the Chiefs game? I think he caught a home run ball and he threw it back or something. It was on SportsCenter. I did a video on it. Just kind of interesting. I mean, who knows? I don't know what they're foreshadowing. It's like it's all over, but they're coding San Francisco, Kansas City, Lincoln, and Philadelphia like no other with the Moses stuff. Also there's the New Madrid fault or whatever that I would assume if there was a giant earthquake, it would affect Lincoln and Kansas City. And I know this one in 1811 was a huge one that affected a whole lot of places. So, who really knows? Just want to point that out. I mean, they're really foreshadowing earthquake, I feel like. Felt like that for a long time now, so who knows? Even the foreshadowing of the two Philadelphia 76ers, Daryl Dawkins, DD. D is the fourth letter, so 44. MM, 1313. If you break that down in Pythagorean or whatever, 1 plus 3 is 4, so 44. MM is 44. DD is 44. Anyway, I just want to talk about some 106 stuff. This earthquake still really, I don't know, intrigues me. It doesn't have much information. I need to look elsewhere, but the time of 230911, the 9/11/23, it's on Princess Margaret's birthday in the year 88, and it's all about Back to the Future and time travel, so just really interests me. I just don't know, can't figure it out. But anyway, the aftershock of this earthquake on May 25th was on the same day as the Philadelphia train wreck that was going 106 miles an hour, and it had the 106 on it, and it was also at 9:23 p.m. So I guess moral of the story, just wanted to point out that day was significant with the numbers 106 and 601. I just talked about the coding in the Nebraska game with George Bush Sr. or George Elder Bush, and he was born on June 12th. If you add 106 days to his birthday, it takes you to 9/26, the day I said Nebraska played and whatever, and it's all coded to that day. I feel like the 269th day on 26-9. September 23rd adds up to 269. Also found it interesting, April 15th, the day that Abraham Lincoln died, during a leap year, it's the 106th day of the year. So next year, in 2016, it will be the 106th day of the year. Normally, it's the 105th day of the year, and that all ties it. Blood moon adds up to 105. The words 105 add up to 150, just like Lincoln, Nebraska, just like Philadelphia Eagles. The day of the Chile earthquake was also, it was September 16th with 106 days remaining until the end of the year. Even 106 plus 106 is 212. That's the day that Abraham Lincoln was born, the 43rd day of the year. Also, I was thinking about the year 2015. I mean, if you take out the 0, it's like either 215, well, I typed 1, but 215, kind of like the last day of Lupercalia. But if you do it backwards, it's 512, kind of like the same day of the Philadelphia train wreck. Also, if you add 923, add 106 days to it, it takes you to 1/7 of next year. 1/7/17, Moses, 10 Commandments, Lincoln, Nebraska, just who knows. Even Gregorian to Julian, on the Gregorian calendar, 10/6 is the same as 9/23 on the Julian calendar. And if you go to 1/20 of next year, it's 106 days. And that's interesting because Obama winks at 106 in the movie I Pet Goat, but also this is the day that a president becomes the president. So it would be 2017 when Obama wouldn't be the president anymore. The new president begins on 1/20/2017. So the 17 with Moses and whatnot, and 106 days after 10/6, kind of like 106. And remember, Obama is the 44th president, but he's only the 43rd person to be president, because Grover Cleveland, which had talked about how it ties in with Moses, he was president 2 non-consecutive terms. And in between was the 23rd guy, whose last name was Harrison, who was the grandson, I believe, of the 9th president, who was also a Harrison. And so the 9th president and the 23rd president were both Harrisons. So who knows, just throwing out some patterns or whatever. One other thing I wanted to point out then, I guess, so like I said, the next president will be the 44th person to be president, but the 45th president. So I don't know if it ties into earthquakes and whatnot, but the 44, earlier I don't think I mentioned Martin Luther King previously. He died on 4/4 too. But Jeb Bush, his real name is John Bush, adds up to 97 and also 34. And the reason I mention this is because Bush was like Abraham Lincoln's stepmom, Sarah Bush, and she added up to 34, and just Bush stood out. So, but the word 90 or 97, if you add up 97, or actually no, if you add up the word 60 that I've been talking about. So 60 in simple gematria adds up to 97. So that's why it's significant. Also, I said the 9th president earlier, Harrison, he died on 4/4. He's the first president to die in office. Another interesting thing. So, whatever. Today's 9/23, so I guess maybe there'll be something that will happen at 1:06 p.m. or 9:23. I mean, if nothing happens, it doesn't matter. This is all still coded for something else. I've mentioned that like tons of times before. So, I guess we'll wait and see. And hopefully nothing happens, but who knows? Like I said, I wouldn't quit. It's definitely coded for something else if nothing does happen. And there's also the Pope is still here for a few more days after this. So, whatever. Have a good night.